Did you know Corbin Blue's parents originally wanted to name him Bullet Blue?
Wow, Max, we didn't hear that right before you started recording.
Yeah!
Okay. So, are we gonna go right into the topic at hand?
Which is Corbin Blue?
Guardians
Oh.
of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Slightly more disappointing topic, but yeah, we can go into Guardians of the Galaxy too.
You mean the Guardians of Gal... Oh, what is it? What's the owl one?
Gahul.
Gahul. Or, The Guardians with Jack
Starring
Frost.
Jack Frost as himself.
Wait, wasn't
Chris Pine.
Chris Pine? I
Chris
was like,
Pine
was that
was-
Chris Pine?
Yeah.
It was.
Wow.
I prefer.
Speaking of Chris
I prefer the
Pine.
Martin Short
Jack Frost.
Okay.
Chill! I invented chill!
Why was he not nominated for an award for that role?
Alright, so, with that,
It's fucking rigged. Damn Canadians can never win.
With that,
yeah, Jim
Speaking
Carrey
of
hasn't won.
Canadians,
Jim
though,
Carrey has not won.
have any of you been on the Canada ride? Or
Am I right? Is Jim
Ride
Carrey...
at Disney.
He's Canadian, right?
I think so.
I think so, too.
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
Okay, we can confirm.
I'm not
Double
insane.
confirm.
top 3 best things that come out of Canada: Jim Carrey, Canadian bacon, Bryan Adams. Summer of '69. That the guy that wrote that song.
Hey, that's copyright. We don't want to get taken.
Oh,
The
yeah, that was
Summer
so
of
well-
'74.
All right, there we go.
So we went to go see the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 movie today at the theaters.
It's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Excuse me. And we've been saving our thoughts for this.
Oh, how
Special
have we been
episode.
saving our thoughts?
Oh yes.
How have we?
So, I guess.
Do you want just a quick round the room? What did you overall? What did you think?
Overall, yeah. Okay.
Just like a quick yay or nay. All right.
Yes, Brandon, you first.
Yay.
Then me next.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Then
Thought it
Caleb.
was pretty aight.
I'd give it a yay.
I thoroughly enjoyed most of it.
Yeah, I agree. I also liked it.
Cool.
Cool. Okay.
My
moving on
biggest-
from that though.
My
yeah,
biggest
let's
issue
give
with
like
it
the yeah.
was that it definitely did like right at the beginning when everyone's separated. I felt like that was just like one of the worst things that the entire movie did because it felt like all over the place. Obviously you could like follow it, but it just like it didn't feel very centralized to me.
To me, I didn't have a problem with that. My biggest problem was the way it tried to bring them back together. Like, it didn't feel like within the movie itself, because, like, granted, like, there's the impetus within, like, the universe, and, like, it almost feels like you have to have watched the first one right before this, otherwise a lot of the characters' motivations, even if you know the motivations, they don't make as much sense, or, like, the impetus for bringing them back together halfway through the movie doesn't make as much sense.
I did not like the Sovereign very much. They were not good villains.
Yeah, they just like
They were very boring.
what? Well, they weren't
supposed to be the villains.
They
Yeah, I
weren't
know, but,
villains,
like-
but then why were they there? Because they were there in like
They were so
a lot
inconsequential.
of they were there in a
most
lot of
the
these.
parts they were in.
Yeah,
they were
had
th-
just
they were for
random
comedic
appearances.
they were there
Yeah.
just to be like faceless enemies to kill when they could have just had like Kurt Russell's character create.
Yeah,
weird,
yeah. Why
like-
didn't they just
Speaking
have him
of
create,
faceless enemies to kill, I did kind of like how they subverted like the either like the trope of like the heroes won't kill bad guys, or the trope of like, oh, we killed them, oh wait, no, it was an unmanned vessel, where like Rocket Raccoon actively wants to kill them and he's disappointed when they're unmanned.
Yeah.
And then also in the same vein, within the same joke, when they die, it's more like they like lose an arcade
Yeah,
game
yeah,
and they're
exactly.
like, oh dang it.
My big issue was right off the bat, and this was more so the first half of the movie rather than the second half of the movie. I felt like I was being overwhelmed with a joke every 5 seconds. Like, I thought that, and especially in the first half hour of the movie, it's just the number of jokes that they were trying to throw, a number of gags that would like kind of subvert away from the main plot, made it hard for there to be a cohesive plot line for the first half hour of the movie, I would say. The second half of the movie was better. It wasn't a joke every 5 seconds, but even though they were funny, a lot of the stuff was funny. And like, for example, like Drax, he had a lot of those really just really weird lines that are so like blunt, and I thought they were funny, but there were too many of them. I thought that it was taking away from the actual plot, and that we were being overwhelmed with too many jokes.
It almost felt like a kind of a parody, more so than like an actual movie set
Right,
in
it
like, the
didn't-
Marvel
yeah.
universe. It felt almost more like a parody of the Avengers.
I mean, I feel like I definitely they probably could have laid off some of the jokes, but I feel like I didn't have as much of a problem with them. But what I did have a problem with is there were just, for me, there were like a few jokes that I just like were like, this felt forced.
Yeah, especially the one that they showed in like every trailer where like the empath is like reading Star-Lord's thoughts and she's like, "Oh, you want to bang Gamora?" and then Drax starts laughing. That one was, in my opinion, easily the worst joke, and it was the one that they just did to death in all of the trailers because they knew it was the one that was going to be like, people would see and be like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'll see it," because like, it's kind of funny.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe my opinion on that one would be better if it wasn't, in every trailer. But maybe.
Yeah, again, that's always a possibility.
I personally liked what they did with Yondu a lot more, and I liked how they sort of made him a more, I guess,
Yeah, I did.
I liked
did
how
it.
they
I
treated
did.
him in
What-
this movie, and they made it so that he wasn't just a heartless person who kidnapped
Asshole,
a child, and they did it in a way that like he still wasn't like, oh, now I'm a good guy.
Yeah,
It was sort of
he
like,
wasn't necessarily a good guy, but he did redeem himself at least.
and that also made me sort of, I like the parallel between him and Rocket a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How they like sort of connected that. They both made in that vein. They made both of them sort of much deeper characters,
Right,
and
they're
they gave them a reason
more
for being
multifaceted,
like
yeah.
assholes sort of throughout the entire
And like,
thing.
even though not everyone had are we spoiling? Spoiler alert: Yondu dies at the end, but I kind of like that. Even though most of the characters, like with the exception of Star-Lord and to an extent Rocket Raccoon, didn't really have any connection with Yondu, or like they didn't really have any emotional attachment to it. They all got something out of his death in their own way. Like,
Wait, you
'cause
like that or you didn't?
I do like that. Like that. Like it was able to like not just focus solely on Star-Lord when he died. Like
Yeah, they were
like
each of them were uniquely impacted
Yeah, like-
in their own way.
like
not
Gamora
just,
reconnected with her sister. Star-Lord learned to like sort of accept himself and his upbringing and not try and like accept that and like recognize Yondu as like a father figure. Rocket Raccoon learned that like he still has friends.
yeah,
Even Drax and Groot kind of got something out of it.
It also kind of gave it a bit more. It gives the movie stakes in which like
Yeah,
it's one of the few Marvel movies where a character who was previously established, like, and he's a big main character, I guess, in this franchise right here, dies, and you actually feel something.
Yeah.
It's not a quick-silver death.
I feel like,
but they do still like keep around like the interestingness that his powers add to like the visual
Yeah.
effects, and like in the sense that his first mate,
Kraglin.
Kraglin inherits his powers, sort of like if in the X-Men, say Quicksilver were to die, but like someone else has super speed, so they don't lose that like the gimmick of like his slow-mo scene.
of course, now if they do it in a now if they just like overdo it because like, hey, we still can, then it might not
I really
be a
want
good thing. But I mean, I do think.
I mean, in a sense, I see their I would assume in the next Guardians there's going to be like a joke of like Kraglin trying to use the thing but fucking up, but maybe not, because the next one's supposed to be set like in present day, because this was still set in 2014, like right after the first
it was only like a
Guardians.
couple months after.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, for the one, this is like not a necessarily, actually, it's kind of a flaw, but it's not a huge deal. I just think it's interesting to talk about. I thought it was interesting how the opening scene has Baby Groot dancing around while everyone's fighting in the background, and it just like occurred to me that they stylized that fight by focusing on Baby Groot dancing, but then when they stopped focusing on Baby Groot dancing, that fight was not actually that interesting. Like, I feel like it was just like a big thing to fight that they I just thought that was like an interesting way that like the style like they had it it was like cute and funny, albeit kind of trying to be that opening from the first movie, but like maybe like one-upped a little bit. But then they just go to another standard fight scene, and I was kind of like, you didn't have to do that. You could have done the entire fight scene in the background, and I wouldn't have like begrudged you.
Although the fact that they kind of like kept the monsters abilities that that like were obviously designed specifically to be used in that sequence, like the fact that like it shot out like all that colorful shit in its breath, like
Yeah.
the fact that they kept that consistent afterwards and it looked really, and so like it kind of like made you realize, oh, that would be kind of weird to see, or like that would like outside of that sequence it'd be kind of dumb,
Yeah.
but it's cool that like they at least kept it for consistency's sake.
I also, and I thought the trailers were maybe not the greatest, but like they did a good job at not spoiling the movie. Like,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Like,
like,
I had no
yeah,
idea what
yeah.
the plot was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had zero idea.
Because the trailers were basically just individual scenes.
And, like,
it was
they
the scene with
only
the bomb, and it was the scene with Drax.
yeah,
laughing.
and for the most part, the scenes that they showed a little bit more of were only from the first half of the movie. Like,
and
Yeah.
because like I had heard, because it was spoiled, like who his dad was supposed
Yeah.
to be and stuff like that, but I didn't know that at all from trailers or anything.
Yeah,
That
no.
was just a
Yeah.
something else.
All I had heard was that Kurt Russell was his dad, and I forgot about that. I completely forgot about that
Yeah.
until we like walked in the movie, and it was literally the opening scene.
The
And that
opening
was
scene with,
even
yeah,
just
his
like
mom.
that was like a fan thing. Like James Gunn got all angry because fans were making theories about who Kurt Russell was in the beginning, and he's like, just stop it, don't spoil it for people.
Yeah.
And it ended up getting spoiled, so he just
One nice moment that I thought was a cool touch is, do you guys know how Ego looked in the comics?
Yeah.
With like,
Yeah.
he's an entire planet and his face is like the planet. So there's like a moment, there's like a single shot basically where like they show the outside of the planet
And it's his face.
and it's like
yeah.
his face.
Yeah.
I just thought it was like cool.
That's neat.
that they brought that over.
hmm
I don't know about you guys, but my favorite scene in the entire movie was right after Yondu and Rocket escaped from the prison.
Yeah.
That whole scene where he's standing there in the circular area of the ship. It kind of reminds me of the prison scene from the first movie, where they kind of are all fighting everybody while all the chaos is happening, trying to break out and stuff, fighting all the robots. It reminded me of that, and I thought it was just really cool how. While Rocket was shooting through all the doors and not the doors, through all the walls and all the people, Yondu was just whistling around the arrow, killing everybody on the ship. I don't know. I just thought that was a
it
great
was
scene.
really
That was-
visually pleasing. Like
Yeah.
I want to real quick. I think this is okay. One issue that I have with the movie that was also present in the first movie too. There are a lot of scenes that I feel like are there. He uses slow motion a good bit, and I feel like every time it's not quite necessary. It's not to like emphasize an impact or to show like the quick thinking like in like the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes movies. It's just kind of this shot looks mildly interesting, or it shows all the characters together. Let's really quickly freeze frame it so that you can have like 5 seconds
of looking
at it, when I think it could have
I
been.
think that was more prevalent in this one than the first one.
It was
I
more,
do
definitely
agree.
more, but they did like in
They
the
did
first
do that
one.
in the first. Yeah.
In the first one, there's that scene where they're all walking down the hallway in the prison, and it's like, this shot only exists because they want to put it in the trailer.
Right,
Like,
exactly. I know what you mean. I don't think that detracts from the movie as a whole,
No,
but I
it-
think that's kind of like irritating.
I
that
definitely,
it's
like-
just overdone a bit.
That is a thing that, like, for me, I think slow motion can be really cool, and I feel like a lot of times it is used in ways that almost make it more, like, that, like, lessen what it's trying to, like, emphasize.
So a parallel I'll draw with that would be like the Zack Snyder
There you go.
Watchmen. You know what I mean?
have not
Yeah, that's
seen
like
it.
it's
That
like
is
that
like-
movie is like an hour shorter.
It would be an hour shorter if there wasn't all the slow motion that's in it. I really
Same
like
with 300.
yeah,
I think
same with 300
It
too.
was 300.
But, like, that's what-
that was like though like
It emphasizes the impact. It's like trying to make this, like, visceral
And
Whereas with
blood splatter.
yeah, with Watchmen it was more just a gimmick.
yeah.
Like right in the beginning when the comedian is thrown out of his high-rise apartment, it's just him slowly going like this. Like
One movie
you
that I
didn't
think
need that.
One movie that I think does it poorly is, have you seen The Magnificent Seven, the new one?
Yeah.
I think
Also with Chris Pratt.
yes. There's a scene where one of the characters basically jumps and in midair turns around and shoots someone behind him.
Right.
And the whole sequence is slow motion. And when I watched it, the only thing I thought to myself is, this just draws out a scene that would have been actually really cool if it was just like a quick
Like a quick
impact,
yeah.
like just a really quick motion that like happened, and you're like, whoa, that was cool. Instead, you're like, all right, this is
we see where it's going.
somewhat
Yeah,
like it did not help it at all. But then, like, have you seen Dread?
Yeah.
that movie uses like slow-mo in the plot.
Yeah.
Where the
that's,
drug-
that's different.
That's like, I think that's an interesting use of it. I don't know, I just wanted to bring that up because I saw
Yeah.
that movie recently.
But I don't know. What were your guys' favorite scenes from the movie?
I think the like the big like sort of Quicksilver scene of the movie was like sort of was the Yondu and Rocket like prison break scene.
Yeah, I just thought that was
that was
like
it was
visually.
it
even.
looked
And okay, in that case, I thought the slow motion made sense.
yeah.
I thought, and speaking of the slow motion thing, I think that was one of the only cases in the movie where I think it like really was just highlighting all the destruction that was going on.
Any scene with like the Sovereign, I didn't really care about the what was it, the cosmic asteroid field looked kind of cool, like I
The
liked
quantum
that.
asteroid.
Quantum
Okay,
asteroid.
I did
I
find that
liked it.
funny
Yeah.
actually though. I legitimately laughed out loud when they said quantum asteroid field and they showed all these different asteroids popping into and out of existence.
Yeah.
That was funny. I thought that was hilarious. I feel like a lot of people in the theater don't understand why that's funny and they just thought that was just like a gimmick, but like that's actually legitimately funny to me, which is nerdy and fucked up, but whatever. Brandon, what was your favorite scene? If you can-
I'm trying to think. I think there were a lot of actually pretty. I can't like think of specific stuff, but I thought they used Baby Groot pretty well. And,
yeah, I like.
they,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I like.
he definitely he didn't get annoying. You know, he never he never became like a minion or something. That,
Yeah,
like, just,
no,
like,
I thought they used him well.
and I'm glad they didn't have him constantly say "I am Groot" in that high pitched voice. That would have gotten annoying.
Yeah.
I was
real
expecting
fast.
a lot more like just gags and stuff with him, and I thought they were gonna really beat it.
But
into
they
the
actually
ground.
used him like.
Yeah.
well.
I think
And
part
he
of
had some
that is
emotional
like
impact.
and like I think part of that is that he has a wider range of emotions than just plucky sidekick the whole time. Like you see him like run the emotional gamut the same way that all the other characters do. Like he's not just there for comedic relief.
For example,
He is, like,
after they all get captured and on the ship, all those Ravagers that like did the staged immunity, how they're pouring all the alcohol on him and stuff like that, and him walking like really very mopey through, like that was an example of where you could see he had like emotions too, and it wasn't
that scene where he was like going to get different stuff and constantly doing the wrong thing. That was actually like
I thought it was funny. I thought it dragged on just a little
bit
bit
too
too
long.
long. but
I think
thought it
they
was
could have
funny.
cut back on like one or two of them, but still, yeah.
Baby Groot also sort of like adds to the Rocket being so alone, sort of, and not wanting, because like before when he was like adult Groot, he had sort of more of a companion in him.
Now
but
it's
now with
more
Baby
like-
Groot, it's like baby. He's like a father.
He's a
He has
father
to, he has to
figure,
take care of.
I thought that was
his
actually like, I mean, obviously the theme of fatherhood was like throughout this entire movie, but like that ending scene where Baby Groot kind of curled up in Chris Pratt's arm, that actually was that was fairly powerful to me, like in an emotional
and
kind of way.
listen on the Zune.
Okay, that was good.
That was funny, yeah. It's
Uh,
what all the Earthlings are listening to.
One thing I will say is that I didn't like how it almost felt like as soon as it like clicks, like okay, his father's the bad guy, you almost immediately see like okay, well that means that Yondu's also gonna die because they have to kill the dad, and like if they're gonna kill the dad, they're gonna kill Yondu too, like because it's gonna be about him like. If he loses one father figure, he's gonna lose the other one.
And it's gonna be
about,
like a contrast. How this was really my father.
Exactly. Like so that kind of like I didn't like that like that was coming from a mile away. There were a lot of not necessarily even just plot points, but a lot of the jokes were kind of almost
You could
set up too much in that you could see them coming.
Yeah.
He might have been your father, but he ain't. He's
Dad,
not your
that's
daddy.
why I was like
Not your
laughing.
daddy, that line made Brandon and I both actually laugh out loud.
I understand what he was going for, but I feel like if you use the term daddy like that, it's it actually frustrates me because I understand that what they were going for. Just the term daddy ruins it. And you know what else? Sylvester Stallone. I respect the guy a lot, and I feel he's done good things, and I think he's actually a good actor, and not in every movie he's in, like, you know, not in The Expendables, but he is he has been a good actor, but his voice, I cannot take it.
Every time I hear it, like every time like I'll hear it and like just crack up, and then like time will go by and I'm like his voice can't be that bad. And then like along comes his scenes in Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm like, is that really what he sounds like?
Yeah,
he definitely sounded worse in this movie than he has in other
Yeah.
movies.
That-
What
that is
was
true.
that? Was he like trying to do an
legitimately-
accent or something? Because I feel like
he legitimately sounded like Mushmouth.
I know he sounds bad in certain movies, like with his voice, but he definitely sounded worse in this
Yeah, it
one
sounded like he was
somehow.
like had a mouthful of marshmallows.
That brings
like,
up
or something
that's
the
like
entire time.
that parallels really well with the South Park episode where they have Sylvester Stallone and they actually have a translator who goes and then it's like Sylvester says or Mr. Stallone says, so they have people translate. Like that's what I felt like with this movie. What the hell was that? I've never heard his voice actually sound legitimately that unintelligible. It's amazing to me.
I mean, like,
I don't
have you
know.
guys seen Creed?
No, I've not seen Creed.
Anyone? Because I actually think Sylvester Stallone acts really well. In that movie.
I heard that he
Yeah.
did a good. He did
I
a
think
good job. in it.
Sometimes
I mean,
the writing's a little like simple, but
I think
it's-
I think it's because he gets the character of Rocky.
well,
because he
obviously
He's
wrote
done it
he
for
made-
4 or
he
5
made-
movies.
and he
made
made
the
and
character.
he made
exactly,
the character.
yeah.
Like
So-
the character wasn't that like character based on himself or something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he made the
yeah,
character,
exactly.
And he sold the script or whatever, and he wanted demanded to be Rocky in it.
Yeah.
But like even still at this point, he definitely has in that movie. Like yeah, obviously he understands the character, but he does still, considering that he still acts well. And in this, there's nothing about his performance that I'm like, you acted that poorly. I understood everything he was going for. I hate the fact that the voice makes me laugh.
Speaking of the end of that with featuring Sylvester Stallone, in the end with Ving Rhames.
Ving
too.
Rhames.
And
That
his
surprised me
enormous
so
nose.
much.
Yeah, and is a giant ass nose.
I appreciated the all the old Ravagers coming
Yeah.
back, like the original
For-
team, the
for the
quote unquote
funeral.
original team.
Yeah.
Which
For Yondu's funeral,
Yeah.
yeah. I thought it was.
I mean, okay, the thing is, when you heard the whole thing where Sylvester Stallone said, "You'll never have the Ravagers at your funeral" or something to that
yeah.
effect, you're like, you're gonna die, but you are gonna do it in a nice way, so you will have the
Yeah.
Ravagers
Yeah,
at your
yeah.
funeral.
I mean,
Exactly.
yeah.
Like
Yeah,
you said with the
exactly, yeah.
setup stuff, I gestured at
You could
Max
tell that
for
was
that.
coming.
That is who you is.
Visual gag.
Speaking of that planet though, like the snow and cocaine planet,
Yeah.
the Howard the Duck
Oh,
cameo.
boy.
Yeah, that was very surprising. I
snuck
had
him
no
in.
idea. No idea that was gonna be in there. I had no idea why the hell they threw that in there, but I'm very
Because
happy they did.
he's also in the
Yeah,
first
he's in
one.
I know,
Yeah.
but it's just it's hilarious. To me.
Speaking,
Yeah.
speaking of cameos that we should have expected but didn't, the David Hasselhoff one.
Yeah.
That was
Where it's
good.
like I tried to be a form that you wanted to see, and then it was David
Yeah, he turns into
Hasselhoff.
David Hasselhoff.
And then they have him sing a credit song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the credits, he's not credited as David Hasselhoff. He's credited as the form of David, Hasselhoff.
Wait, was it? I didn't
Yeah.
actually. I
Yeah,
didn't.
the form of David Hasselhoff.
That's funny.
It's too funny.
I didn't look at
He
that.
had a very big presence in that entire movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was the father figure apparently.
Yeah.
He was the visual for the
Who was that?
theme
Who was that man that
of
used to always talk
fatherhood.
about that would go out on his boat? He would fight crime in a car, correcting. Oh, wait, I can't even think of
Gamora.
Gamora. Yeah, I couldn't even think of her name. Yeah.
Was it like Xenu Hasselblad?
Yeah, Xeno Hasselhoff, David Hasselhoff, or whatever the batteries were called, and then
Oh,
Drax
yeah.
would keep calling them like Harblues.
Yeah.
That's so complete- that was really that was actually
Yeah,
pretty
the
funny.
way they turned that around, where like
Yeah.
Drax asks what it was, so Star-Lord tells him, and he immediately like mispronounces it, and then later when Star-Lord says it, and then
He's
Drax like,
like,
no, they're this.
they're Harblu batteries. Or...
No, they're not.
that was.
I do
actually
think
funny.
it is really interesting to me to just look at the trajectory of Chris Pratt's career, because obviously
He went
everyone
from-
knew him from
yeah,
Parks and Rec,
Yeah.
and now he's
One
got
of
to
the
be
biggest stars.
he's
yeah.
the probably I would honestly say one of the biggest star rising star in Hollywood
Yeah.
right now, definitely I would say.
Yeah, 'cause
I
he,
would say
did a
in
great
terms of
job.
leading men from that his generation, I would say that, and this is debatable, but I would say that the only person bigger than him I can think of is Ryan Gosling, and that's debatable. It's I would say they're the
Yeah,
top two.
I was
They're-
thinking
yeah.
Ryan Gosling as well.
And even like Ryan Reynolds is having like a renaissance. but
uh,
not
yeah.
what
nearly
is it?
to
What
the
is it?
extent
well, that's
of-
just because of Deadpool, I
Yeah.
think.
Yo, for sure.
I think up there also is Chris Evans. He's pretty
Yeah,
big.
yeah, and
Yeah.
again, because of
Well, Marvel.
Yeah,
That's like-
it seems like and he was Marvel.
because of his leading role in Fantastic Four.
Yeah, yeah, obviously, yeah.
I definitely think like it is interesting to
But
me
the
how like
Hemsworths are also another. Again, they're kind of like. Well, I almost count the Hemsworths as like a single entity.
What about
That like doubles
they were
their-
in Thor and the Expendables. What more do you want?
and the Hunger Games and
What
Westworld.
about that
And
third,
Westworld.
bro? What about that
And
third,
Westworld.
bro?
Yeah, the one from Westworld.
Yeah, the one that nobody remembers.
And the soon-to-be married in sister, Miley Cyrus.
Hey, now she's in Marvel too.
Do you think she'll change her name
Is
to
she?
Miley Hemsworth?
She was a mainframe? She was the
Yeah.
robot at the end.
Yeah, at the end.
Whatever all the
second,
Ravengers
the
are?
second post-credit scene.
I did
Yeah.
not realize there is, but I think it's interesting how like the action movies of like that from when before we were born, you know, like 70s and 80s action
Yeah,
movies,
like,
they have been
Rambo,
replaced. The
Terminator.
new action movies are superhero
Yeah.
movies. That's like the big thing right now. It's kind of interesting.
Well, yeah, and you have Marvel, who's been doing their universe since like Iron Man was released back in like 2008 or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
think it's 2000.
And then now DC's finally catching up and starting to do their thing.
Oh,
that- okay,
Like,
what is
superhero movies have
catching up
finally
mean?
supplanted the era of like the Mission Impossible, Jason Bourne style espionage thriller.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
That
went
kind
from
of took
it went
over the early 2000s.
It went from like, well, I mean, obviously, I don't know what it was. I can't think right now what it was before this, but it was the big buff dude action movies
Yeah.
with Schwarzenegger, Stallone, and I don't know,
Dolph
Bruce
Lundgren.
Willis.
Yeah,
in
Batman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then it
he's
moved
on
it moved over to when they started like with Jason Bourne, it started to move over into like more actual like martial arts and like
Same, and then you had also like the Mission Impossible movies with
Mhm.
Tom Cruise, which I think are really well done.
Yeah.
I
love.
really like the Mission
I haven't-
Impossible movies.
There are not many of them, I think, that I've seen over once or twice, but I like those movies. And then now, superheroes are the
Yeah,
thing.
superheroes are the big thing now.
And Star
I-
Wars has always been in fashion.
That's true.
I'm glad that the superhero trend outlived like the teen movie, like the Twilight Hunger Games.
Oh,
trend.
God.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
not to say that those movies don't still exist, but they're not nearly as in full force.
I
I
Because
thought
they know
what you meant
like,
is
the-
like that they yeah, technically you can go still buy a disc of Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2, but I was like, oh, you mean like exist as in some still come.
I feel like, and maybe this is just like my perspective, but it almost seems like they realize that like they can reach the same audience but more with the superhero movies. They're still getting that same like tween
I think
demographic,
also-
but also everyone else.
I think there's also been a trend now of whereas before they would mostly make movie adaptations, so to speak, of like books and things like that, but now with the superhero thing, it's more all about the comics and the graphic novels and stuff like that. The only superhero movies that were made like pre-2000s were Batman and Superman, and they weren't really canon at all. They were just kind of
Well,
They're
are you
okay.
We have a series of 90s Marvel movies
Yeah.
like The Punisher
or Lou
starring Dolph
Ferrigno's
Lundgren.
Hulk.
Yeah, starring Dolph Lundgren. Punisher.
And the
I
rapies
did say
Spider-Man.
pre-2000s.
That is
Hulk
pre-2000s.
is Hulk is 2000s.
Well, not
Not-
Lou Ferrigno.
Not Lou Ferrigno.
Oh yeah, true. Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
TV show.
And we had that connected universe with the Thor from that
Or
universe.
or the Fantastic Four that happens to somehow be worse than all of the others, which is surprising.
Amazing, yeah.
Okay.
The one that they made just so they could hold on to the rights, which is, to be fair, most of any movie that Fox made.
Yeah.
The thing that upsets me is that Guardians is definitely like a series that I think of within the Marvel universe. I think they have not fallen into the trap that a lot of Marvel movies fall into, where they follow very similar plot structures. The villains always have like similar to equal powers, you know, and it, like that, and like they're just like not interesting to me. They're so similar in every way.
And the fact that at this point every individual hero movie has turned into an Avengers movie kind of exacerbates that, because you have the exact same cast of characters. You
Mhm.
get like add or subtract a few.
I was also talking about earlier that I don't care about like people like Robert Downey Jr.'s character Tony Stark at all anymore. Basically, Like,
he's
okay,
been
I'll
running
say
to the ground.
I'll say a lot of people didn't like Iron Man 3. I personally I like Shane Black a lot, so I kind of enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. Yeah,
I enjoyed it more than 2, but I still.
Oh, it was definitely better than
I didn't care about Tony Stark almost at all in that movie.
Okay,
I mean,
that was another one we were talking about before, like how like endings that still managed to ruin the movie. That was another one where the ending just felt so lackluster.
Like
where like I thought that like up until that point I thought that, like it was actually like no, I wouldn't say a very good movie, but it was I thought
It's
like
pretty
an
good,
interesting take on an Iron Man.
they kept Pepper alive only to then basically write her out of the
in
Marvel
the next,
universe.
in Civil War, we're separated.
So
I am interested to see what like Tony Stark seems like an interesting like almost father figure to Peter Parker in the new Homecoming. But that's my biggest fear for Homecoming is that it's just gonna be another Marvel movie with the same plot structure that all of them have,
just
and like
Spider-Man now.
the same like they all have like I get the movies all like try to have like similar like rises and falls and excitement because that like people kind of know how to do that.
Like
but like
introduce your conflict on page 10.
But now it's like crazy how Marvel has like they're so predictable. And like that's Guardians doesn't do that. Guardians are the few that have not done that.
I'm worried that because like they said that Guardians 3 like the Guardians are going to like become a part of the Marvel, like the actual Marvel universe now, like they're going to start interacting with everyone else. I'm worried that it's going to turn into that. Let's just pick and choose from the same ensemble cast, and let's like make it like let's homogenize the plot to fit the Avengers storyline and not like the Guardians storyline. Which is why I think like Thor Ragnarok looks awesome because Thor and Hulk like it's
they're isolated. They are separated.
They're isolated. Captain America Civil War was an Avengers movie.
It shouldn't have been. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
so, I mean,
Thor Ragnarok is a Thor movie.
Winter Soldier. I liked Winter Soldier a lot.
But like they didn't include the only one they included Black Widow and Nick Fury.
And those were people integral to like Steve Rogers. Like, as a
they had the Falcon.
But like,
but that was the introduction.
He
wasn't an Avenger at that time. I think that one thing I liked about Guardians of the Galaxy is I feel like a lot of things try to keep like the status quo, where at the end of Guardians, like Guardians 1, it ended and you had like the 5 Guardians. At the end of this one, they actually added more, and they actually feel like part of the crew that like if they were to make another movie, they wouldn't just disappear off the face of the planet. So I really I was almost hoping I think it would actually be interesting to just kind of like have like the next movie maybe kill off one of the main Guardians from the first one, but then you also add a couple more and just like kind of see that grow. But because of the whole, they're gonna interact with Avengers and Infinity War.
Like a lot of like superhero movies or like ensemble movies, especially like outside of the given origin story movie, where like they go from not being a team to being a team. Every other one, it's just like, okay, they start as this and they may go through some weird like crazy twists and changes in the middle, or they may not, but by the end of the movie it's back to the exact same thing. But like even like within the core characters, like this movie, like even though they knew that Baby Groot was a draw for people, they still like took the step of like, hey, at the end, he's gonna become teenage Groot because he's not gonna stay Baby Groot forever, which I like because like I feel like the more movies that Baby Groot's in, the worse he's gonna get. So I'm glad they like stopped now while he was still on top.
Can they have like an awkward like he like has just graduated from college and he's like really pretentious phase? Also,
Bohemian Groot.
Yeah. I think they totally missed out on like a weird tree-based masturbation joke.
Yeah, I was expecting that. I was expecting that.
Guardians 3.
Though to be fair,
in that ending,
we all would have expected
in the ending
that
credit scene. I was expecting him to
is this your tree
I'm,
sap?
I'm walking through all these limbs and I don't even want to know what this sappy substance is or something like some kind of like joke like that. Like it would have been a crappy joke, but it would have been good. Yeah. Just because we
all would have
wanted
laughed.
it. Yeah.
It would have been dumb. We would have laughed. Life would have gone on.
Life would have gone on. like closing thoughts. I mean, like what, like overall final thoughts on the movie. What do you think, Brandon?
I definitely think it was a little less tight than the first movie, but I still enjoyed it immensely.
Caleb?
It was definitely, I say, one of the better Marvel movies currently. I mean, a lot of them are sort of all the same thing, and this switched up a little bit. Not as good as the first one, personally, but it was still a solid movie.
Yeah, I feel like, granted, it's been so long since I saw the first Guardians, and so, like, I can't really compare the two, because I feel like I just remember, like, key moments, and also John C. Reilly, and I'm just disappointed he wasn't back.
Oh, I'm so disappointed. I just remembered that.
He was, I think, top 3 things of that first movie.
I love John C. Reilly.
But me too. I think he's criminally underrated.
Yeah.
But he should be in more things.
He should be in everything.
That being said, I thought that this movie, and maybe like it was just because it's been so long since I saw the first one, but I thought it was a very nice break from the status quo of Marvel in that it was contrived tension to break the levity versus contrived levity to break the tension, and I think that works a lot better when you frame it as I feel like movies work better when they're comedies that are elevated into a drama as opposed to a drama that feels like it has to bring itself back with comedy.
And I mean, I definitely I hate to compare. This is kind of what everyone does, but I hate to compare like the sequel movies back to the original because I try to at least look at them on their own. But you have to you have to compare it back. I definitely like the first one more, and unlike with Max, I have seen the first one recently, not in preparation, but I genuinely really enjoy the movie. So
I saw someone.
I watched it within the last month or two, and you know the first one was better, but I definitely think that they did a great job with a lot of the story. Besides like the little things I mentioned, like with the whole too many jokes for like only for like the first half hour of the movie, but other than that, like I thought they did a really great job. And visually, the movie looked really great. The colors, all of that, I thought looked amazing. And I'm really pleased. And like Caleb said, it's definitely one of the better Marvel movies that are currently around right now.
And just to say, like, without compare, like, obviously you have to compare it to the original because it is a sequel. That is the nature of it. But it does, as it's like without the first one, it stands on its own as a good movie. But you definitely see the growth of these like relationships that were formed in the first movie. So yes, you have the basis of the first movie that this movie I think did a nice job of like growing the relationships and like showing like how you think they could naturally evolve in some way.
I will say though, I feel like yes, it stands on its own, but it definitely benefits very heavily. I think more so than a lot of other movies that we've seen, like as sequels, like in the Avenger, like in like the Marvel canon. I feel like this one more so benefits from seeing the first one soon before you see it, because there were a lot of times where like I to an extent knew it was going on, like I remembered, but it would have been more helpful. Like it felt like it kind of relies a little bit too much on like everyone remembering as much as they can from the first one.
I mean, yeah, like they continue like the Drax jokes that like you know like require that like don't require, but they like kind of explain why those jokes make sense in like the first movie and all that.
Exactly, like stuff like that, where it just felt like it would have been nice. And I'm not saying to like dumb it down in a like noticeable way, but just like one or two little like mentions here or there, like to pick up people who maybe haven't been as attentive with the movies as everyone else.
Yeah.
Hey, but we did get that Jeff Goldblum like appearance in the credits.
In the
so,
credits,
yeah.
So that
And
is
not in the
into
movie.
Ragnarok.
Yeah.
connections.
That was nice.
See you next time.